Hey everyone, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a quick look at some of the serialization functions that we have built into ProShop. Now, serialization can be very, very complicated, and what we're going to look at today is some of the basic functions. Keep in mind that there's all sorts of variations on this theme. We can serialize manufactured components, so things that are related to parts and work orders. We can serialize items that we buy, so COTS items as they come into inventory. We can choose to serialize those things. And like I said, there's some variations along the way. What we're going to see today is a really sort of top level view of how this works. So what we're looking at here is a work order for an assembly. So this assembly will actually have a bill of material. And if I click on that bill of material, that's going to take me right there. And you can see here that I've got, if I click on Manage BOM, I've got a few items here that are in stock, and I've got one item that's on order. So at any point in time, at this stage, if I want to see what components and what serialized components that I have in inventory, I can always come to this page and take a look. If I click on serialize here, and we're gonna see this now, and I'll scroll over just a little bit to see a little bit more, we'll see that I've got this option to actually pull from inventory any specific serial number. So I'm going to go back a little bit of a step, but I just wanted to show that as to sort of be able to see at any point we're going to be able to see serial numbers for our components as we go forward. Now, this top level assembly, this is serialized as well. So I've got that trigger turned on here. And what we're going to do is we're going to need to tell ProShop that the components that we're about to build are going to be serialized. So I'm going to click on my little icon here next to my assembly operation. And this is where I have my bill of materials. So this icon will actually show up relating to the operation that has bill of material components in it. So when I click on this, I get my little pop-up. And now it's saying, okay, so let's set my parts from inventory for this work order. I'm going to just set a total of 10, which is what my pieces are, and I'm going to include an out inventory transaction. Now that might seem a little bit confusing. Don't worry about that, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to be able to track this sort of on both sides of the coin in terms of how we're doing the serialization. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. And now you can see here are the individual serial numbers that have been created for the 10 items that I'm going to be making today. The default system prefix is going to use my work order number and then a suffix of just a sequential number. So in this case, it starts at 001 and goes up to 00010, so 10. I also have the option to do a batch serialization, and we'll take a little bit of a closer look at that as we kind of move through this process. But in this case, I want every component that I'm manufacturing to actually have its own unique serial number at the end of the scheme. So I'm going to let this sit. I'm not going to change anything here. I'm just going to go ahead and save changes. So now each line item will have a serial number that I want to apply to this. I'm going to go ahead and close this window, and now we're going to take a look at some of our subcomponents. Again, to get there, I'm just going to go into my bill of material, and I'm going to, first of all, take a look at my purchase components. We'll start at that side of things. So on this fitting that we have, this is a serialized component, and I have a few different entries down here in my inventory table. So if I wanted to take a look at my inventory table, actually let me go ahead and go right into that, go a little bit deeper here. And I want to see maybe what's in store for serialization here. So in this case, for all 13 items that were received on this PO, you can see I've serialized each one of them. Again, I kept with the standard configuration, the system default configuration, which is the PO, and in this case, line item number. So it's PO number 203120, line item number 1-001, and so on and so forth. So these are all the different serial numbers that are available from this PO. I can go back one and we can check out like another one here if I wanted to go in and see about these. Again, all those serial numbers have been applied to each unique item. Now this would be done at the receiving stage. As we move these from receiving into inventory, we would go through the steps to serialize these things. I'm not going to get into that level of detail today. That's just where it would happen. Now let me take a look at my other purchased item here, this fitting. It's a little bit different. But again, if I wanted to go in, I'll go right into my inventory table. And if I wanted to see how I serialized this one, again, I'll click on this link here, and that's going to take me to this. Same thing, I didn't change the default. This is using the PO number and line item number. But you can see I've batch serialized these. So serial 1 is actually going to be for 100 units, and serial 2 is going to be for 100 units. So I've got two separate examples of purchased items, one that has unique serial numbers for every single component, and this one that has batch serializing for the 100 pieces or what have you. So this can be really useful maybe for things that come in lots, or it can even be useful for items that might be like adhesives or any other chemical that might go into or be mixed into an assembly of some sort. All right, so with that done, we know that my two purchase components are in inventory and they're both serialized. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at a manufactured component. So in this case, this is the part level for this attachment number 2. This did come in off of this work order. If we click on the work order, we'll be able to see that it's been through the entire process. We made 20 of these. Now I'm going to go back to my part level, and again, we're going to take a look at our inventory table. So the inventory table's here, same sort of a thing. If I want to see the serial numbers, I click on that. And here we go. There's all 20 of my individual components that we manufactured with their corresponding serial numbers. Now, in this case, I've changed my system configuration and I've overridden that with a specific prefix that I wanted to use. So that could be things like your cage code or your customer's code, whatever they want to call these. You can actually utilize that. And of course, at any point, if I ever wanted to overwrite these, I could always overwrite these manually. Keep in mind, on inventory tables and with the serialization, these are fields that you have to have access to. So it's not just going to be anybody that can go in and change these numbers. So they are behind access settings and sometimes training settings, depending on how you have the system set up. All right, so just real quick, let me show you the serialization configuration. Here you can see that if I've got this, I have a serialization prefix and a suffix that I can do both if I want to override the system configurations for what we would get there. So every part and every COTS item would have that configuration. So you have a lot of control over how these are created. All right, so getting back here to my bill of material, we've got our two purchased items. Those are in inventory, those are done. Our manufactured items, those are in inventory, serialized, everything's done there. However, I do have one item that's still on order. So we're actually going to step through this process to see how we apply serial numbers to these individual subcomponents. So I need to do that before I can pull these for my assembly. All right, so I'm just going to go right into that part level again. Now this is already set up. I already have a work order ready to go, and we're going to go right here. So at this stage, what's happened is I can see that these have been through the manufacturing process. They've been through our final inspection, and they're really ready to go into inventory. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and put them into inventory. It's a little bit of an additional process because I'm concerned about serialization. Now I can do this right now and then go into my inventory tables and serialize them, or I can do it vice versa. The system will allow me to do it either way. But I'm gonna mark my work order as complete. So these parts I'm now physically putting into inventory. And now I'm going to go into my inventory table, go to my part level, and I'm just going to go right here and click on this. So this is the work order that I'm putting in inventory right now. Again, if I wanted to change any of my serialization configuration, add a prefix, maybe I wanted to call this attach, dash, whatever, I can do that. Or I can let the system configure that for me. In this case, I'm going to stick with the system configuration because that's easy to do. ProShop's always going to give me my work order number and a dash number associated with that. So I'll just simply check this out. You can see it's defaulting to give me one line item. And this is where if I'm going to do a batch serialization, I just put in the quantity that fits into that batch. Or I can serialize the remaining, and that's going to give me all the individual line items for the quantity that I'm entering in inventory, in this case 10, and I'll save that. So now I've put those into inventory. And I've assigned them serial numbers. Of course, there's physical work to do. I actually have to make sure that maybe these have been engraved, or maybe I have to manually engrave them or manually part mark them. There may be an additional step here that you would need to add, even as an operation on the work order, to make sure that these are identified correctly. So with that though, the tables are set. Everything is good. I'm going to have all of my inventory and all of my associated serial numbers for what I need. All right, now I'm going to close this, and we're going to go back to our main level work order, our bill of material here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and manage this, have it recalculate for me everything that I'm doing here. So as I can see that all of my pieces are in stock now. And what I want to do is I actually want to choose what item I'm going to serialize. So I'm going to start this, and I'm going to do this process sort of one by one because that would make the most sense. I take the individual components off my shelf, and I know, and let me back up. Let me kind of go back to where we started here, back to our inventory table. So when I look at my inventory table for this, this has got completed here. So on this, let me drag that open a little bit. So on this, we've created our serial numbers. These are the components that I'm going to send to the customer. The work order number and the dash number, that's my serial number. So I'm going to start with serial number 1 because that's the first one that I want to make. So when I come back over to my bill of material, I can select that out of my list. You see there's all the serial numbers that are available for me to work on are here. So I select which one I'm going to do first, and then that opens up my table. So now for each line item, as I go to my shelf or go to my kit cart and I pull line items off, I can select which serial number am I going to be using. And I don't necessarily have to do it in order. Maybe I'm going to select this one, serial number 3 for that. And then for this item, I'm going to select serial number 6. And just go on down the list here, and I'm looking at my suggested allocations. I can see my work orders here highlighted in yellow. It's suggesting I pull this line item. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Say I'll just choose 1 on this one, and same with this line item here. I'll say, oh, and these are the batch serialized. So I'm going to take them out of this first batch on that. So I've gone through. I've said up here, this is the first serial number that I'm going to work on, and then I've selected one of every single component that I'm going to be putting into this. However, here's the caveat. I actually need 2. So here, I can use serial number 6, but you can see here my currently required is 2, so I have to do that again. Of course, I don't have to go through the whole list. I can do these all at once for each line item. But here again, I need 2. So I can go ahead and select that I'm going to do 1 and 2 from that. And this is a batch, so I don't need, because there's 100 pieces in this batch, I don't need to actually select 2 out of here. When I hit set, every item that I have here will be pulled for this work order. This is assembly serial number, blah, 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 quantity 1. I've got 1 of those. I've got 2 of those, 2 of those. And of course, I've got 2 of these. Now, this is showing that I pulled it from the lot of 100 pieces. But the status for each one of these line items is complete. I'll be able to reference that at any point in time when I want to look and see what's going into serial number 1. Now let me go back to standard view here, and you'll see my status changes to in stock. This defaults to a simplified list, just showing me so far what's been pulled. But I will also know that if I click on Manage BOM again, I can do that whole process over. So if I wanted to do serial number 2, for example, same thing. Here it is. It's going to open up. Now when I go to this line item, the serial number 3 is missing because it's already been allocated. So I no longer can pull that off the shelf. It's in assembly number 1. So I'm making assembly number 2. So I'll just say that's number 2. I'll call this one number 2 as well. And I'll call this one maybe number 1. I'll take number 1 and 2 out of this. I'll come back here to this and pull in just the same thing here. Just take a couple take a couple line items off. There we go. And then down at the bottom, my full serialization here. and I'll set that. So now that's satisfied for assembly number 2, for quantity 1. And if I just want to sort of move through these as I shift through and see every time I pull a different serial number out of the list, it's going to show me what I've actually pulled for each serial number along the way. So if, in these cases, I haven't pulled anything for serial number 4, so nothing is there. If I go back up to serial number 1, all of that information, what did I pull? What components go into serial number 1? All right, so that's really the gist of it. And then, of course, I would go through and I would do sort of, in series every time. If you're doing job kitting, so you're kitting together each assembly and all the components that go into every one assembly, and maybe you're putting them in separate bins or something, and then they're going to go through assembly. This step could be done at any stage, however it might fit your manufacturing process. But you can see we have a lot of detail built in. And as I mentioned, I'm not going to go through every single option and every single feature that we have, but just keep in mind that there is additional items and there may be additional concerns that you have in terms of how we will manage in serial numbers and inventory within the ProShop environment. So if you have anything, be sure to reach out. Let us know. We'll be able to walk you through those really sort of specific areas that that maybe I didn't cover today, and make sure that we can get you the serialization and the tracking that you need. All right, thanks a lot, everyone. I really appreciate the time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.